What I'm going to try and do at ACAMP today is to provide some background to the isotope crisis that I'm sure you read about over the last year, and what I think may well actually be a solution to the issues that we have of reactor-produced isotopes and the replacement of those reactors. Okay. So there are a number of important medical isotopes, and these are either used for diagnostic use, such as technetium, which is produced by a reactor and is the main issue that arose out of the shutdown of Chalk River. Iodine-131, for example, is a therapeutic isotope. Lutetium is a therapeutic isotope. And these are cyclotron-produced isotopes and could well be the way in which the medical imaging field, the medical isotope use field, is going to go in the future. Briefly, the principles of medical isotopes in diagnostic use. We have a targeting molecule with a radioactive label attached to it. There are a number of different linker technologies.
And they're used on an imaging device to produce a variety of
an image using technetium,
images.
It's a bone scan.
This is an image using technetium. It's a bone scan identifying, in this case, a tumor eroding bone. You can see the skeleton is outlined, the ribs are outlined.
Healing bone uses more of
and it works on the basis that healing bone uses more of the bisphosphonate compound to which the technetium is. This is using radioactive iodine, and this is using fluorine XG, which is a metabolic tracer demonstrating the glucose cycle. It's obviously the heart.
We're going to be talking primarily about technetium as this linker.
We're going to be talking primarily about technetium as this linker and these types of radiopharmaceuticals as we go forward.
If we look at use, in 2005 in the United States, about 90 million scans were performed using technetium. In Canada, it's about 1.8 million, about 200,000 in Alberta, and about 450 to 500 doses a day are used in the Edmonton area. About 20 million technetium procedures in Europe, and probably something between 30 and 50 million in the rest of the world. So it's a technique which is benefiting something of the order of 60 million patients worldwide. So that's a lot of annual doses. The supply chain is actually utterly counterintuitive. Uranium is processed in one of 5 nuclear reactors. All of these nuclear reactors were initially built as research reactors. They are heavily subsidized by the government. And the
OECD have recently published an economic survey of medical isotope use using reactors, showing that it is, as I say,
obviously lots of opportunities for the chain to go wrong, and during the crisis, when
molybdenum is made in the reactor, it's processed from in the Canadian, North American system
from Europe.
in Kanata at
we lost many shipments because
it is then shipped
pilots in particular refused to carry radioactivity
Kanata to either St. Louis
so
or Boston,
have no
where it is processed into a generator. A generator is basically it's a column with molybdenum fixed on it, and it's eluted daily with saline. Those generators are then shipped around North America, around the world, where they're used to create the radiopharmaceuticals, which are then injected into the patient and scanned. Obviously, lots of opportunities for the chain to go wrong, and during the crisis, when we were getting these generators from North America, from Europe, we lost many shipments because Air France pilots in particular refused to carry radioactivity on their planes. And so we would suddenly have no isotope supply in North America because of a French pilot. Not that I'm displaying my English heritage. There are currently 6 reactors producing isotopes worldwide. The bulk of the world's supply comes from the NRU in Chalk River or the Petten reactor in the Netherlands. So you can see that the system is dependent for, let's say, 70-75% of world supply purely on 2 reactors. And these are just some of the issues that were, I just went through the Globe and Mail and pulled out 3 or 4 of the three or four of the headlines, it impacted significantly. Not entirely sure that the bottom one is true, but it made a very good headline. So the background to the crisis: Chalk River was shut down in 2007 because of a perceived safety defect. It was then reopened, but in fact it was shut down for over a year in 2009 because of a leak in a reactor vessel. And in March 2010, Petton shut down for a planned maintenance because of a leak in the reactor vessel. So both of these reactors are 50 years old and are obviously the fragile end of a fragile supply chain. Both have now restarted. The government have indicated that come what may, Chalk River will close in 2016 and Petton will probably close in 2018. So 70% of the world's supply of medical isotopes will go. Whole bunch of ameliorating activities during it. Interestingly, until this crisis, the six reactor manufacturers had never once talked to each other to try and schedule planned downtimes. So at least one good thing has come out of this. Most importantly, have been two initiatives by the federal government. One was a competition to look at alternatives. More importantly, an expert panel to advise on future directions. The expert panel, they recommended against reopening the Maple reactors, a whole different story of unsuccessful Canadian technology. But these are two reactors that were built specifically to manufacture isotopes using unproven technology, which unfortunately has left us with a $400 million bill. They recommended building a new reactor only if it could be justified on the basis of research, so neutron activation, with manufacturing of isotopes as very much a secondary. They did suggest exploring alternative technologies using cyclotrons and linear accelerators, and I'm going to talk about what we think may be a solution using cyclotron-based technology. There was lots of follow-up. I'm not going to read through the slide. It'll be available online. But having said that, NRCan announced a project with up to $13 million for looking at these alternative methods of manufacturing isotopes. So what have we done at the University of Alberta? So far, we've had a successful application to Western diversification, which has enabled us to buy the 24 MeV cyclotron, which is the sweet spot energy for manufacturing technetium. We're currently completing the long form now that we know the outcome of the submission. The university have given us the Balmoral curling rink, which is a large elderly shell of a building. And we got $4.5 million out of the NRCan submission. And so the final piece is to move the Edmonton radiopharmacy, which is a large central radiopharmacy supplying about 500 doses a day. So our hypothesis is that we can directly make technetium on a cyclotron in commercial quantities, and that it will be easy to get regulatory approvals. And these are the partners. Advanced Cyclotron Systems is a Vancouver-based company who will be manufacturing the 24 MeV cyclotrons. The ERC, as I say, is a large central radiopharmacy. It was opened in 1975. It was moved to the Cross in 1992. We would like to move it out of the Cross because we need the space for clinical use and because they're becoming non-compliant. They make clinical radiopharmaceuticals. They have a GMP manufacturing facility, and they have a large education and research component through my department, the Department of Oncology. They make finished dose radiopharmaceuticals. They have GMP manufacturing for kits. They do contract research for small biotech companies, and they have been manufacturing clinical trial radio tracers for use. They are now about a $6 million company, would be a company if they weren't sitting awkwardly within Alberta Health Services. They're at about $6 million revenues a year, and their profit has been of the order of $350,000, $400,000 a year over the last 4 or 5 years.